Let's talk about a word that makes people flinch. Hypnosis. Say it at a game table and someone's going to joke about pocket watches or start making chicken noises. But in this video, I'm going to demonstrate and discuss 20 proven hypnotic techniques you can use to create a new level of player immersion at your gaming table. It's deliberate language designed to bypass logic and speak straight to the part of your brain that believes. That's not magic, that's technique. Because hypnosis isn't some goofy trance state, it's focus. That moment when you're reading and don't hear someone call your name, when a story grabs you so completely that the rest of the room just fades out. That's it. That's all it is. And if you're a game master, that's kind of your goal. You're not just running scenes, you're inducing immersion. Your players don't want to be controlled, but they do want to be taken into a world that feels more real than the room they're sitting in rolling dice. And the fastest way to get them there is by learning that storytelling is a form of hypnosis. Why do we remember Tolkien's forests or Martin's battles, not as plot points, but as places we've experienced? You're already doing it every time you slow your voice and say, "You hear something breathing in the dark." That's not just narration, that's kind of a spell, and here's the science behind it. The brain doesn't draw a hard line between memory and imagination. The same neural pathways fire. So when your players really see the crumbling tower or the blade twist in their side, a part of them kind of has lived that. That's why it stays with them. That's why this hobby works. And no, it's not manipulation. This isn't about steering players. It's about creating gravity. You're not pushing them down a track. You're building something so compelling they want to follow, and using a few dirty tricks to do it. But none of it works without trust. Because if your players think you're gaming them, if they think you're fudging dice or forcing outcomes, the dream breaks. The voice in their head starts whispering, "This isn't real, and this doesn't matter." But if they trust you, if they believe every beat of your narration is there for them, not to trap, not to trick, but to invite, they'll let go. And they'll help build the hallucination with you. Because that's what this really is, a shared hallucination. And it only works when everyone's willing to forget, just for a moment, that this isn't real. That the blood isn't real. That God isn't sleeping in the tomb. That's the magic circle we draw. You're not here to trick anyone. You're here to build something they want to believe in. So stop thinking of storytelling as just flavor text. It's not extra, it's not the fluff. It's the hypnotic engine of immersion. Because here's the truth. Your best sessions, the ones where time vanished, the table leaned in and nobody touched their phones for 4 hours, that wasn't luck. That was flow. Flow is that razor edge state of perfect engagement. It's what happens when the challenge meets the skill, when the stakes are high, but within reach. When your brain locks in so hard, you forget where you are. And all that's left is the game. You felt it. You've probably seen it in your players. That moment where the player jumps off of a ledge onto the back of a dragon and the dice hang in the air and everyone's breath is caught. Not because they're waiting their turn, but because they're in it. That's not just a vibe, that's biology. When you're in flow, your brain floods with dopamine and norepinephrine and anandamide, the same chemicals behind falling in love, getting addicted, or finding God. These are real measurable shifts in how your brain processes time and attention and pleasure, which means immersion It's not just fun, it's addictive. It might even be why your players keep showing up, even when they're tired, even when they're stressed, even when they've got 12 tabs open in their lives and barely an ounce of focus left. It's not just loyalty, it's chemical reinforcement. Their brains want back in or back out. But here's the catch. Flow only happens under specific conditions. Too easy, you get boredom. Too hard, anxiety. Too much monologuing with no player input, disengagement. To hit flow consistently, you have to walk that razor's edge. Match the moment to the players. Not too much, not too little. And that's where the magic circle comes in. The magic circle is the space we all step into when the game begins. It's not physical, it's psychological. It's a shared agreement that for the next few hours, reality is suspended. In here, you're not Sarah the barista, you're Kala the witch knight of the Ashwin Temple. And here the rules are different. The consequences are imagined, but we want them to feel real. That isn't just make-believe, that's function. Inside this circle, we give ourselves permission to act differently, to act out, to feel differently, to believe just a little more than we normally would. And when it's working, when the circle holds, you don't have to pretend to be your character, you just are. That's the goal. Not just immersion like it's a light switch, but immersion like it's a ritual, a shared hallucination space, a co-created dream that lives on its own. And your job as the GM is to protect that space. Which means more than just painting pretty descriptions. It means tuning every part of the game. Pacing, mechanics, tone, group energy, all toward the state of deep engagement. Because every player at your table is wired differently. Some are sensory. They need sounds, smells, tactical cues. You hear the bridge groan. Oil burns in the air. The wind tastes like copper. Some are emotional. They want meaning, motivation, context. She doesn't flinch because the last time she ran, her brother didn't make it. Some are tactical. They need clarity, logic, consequence. He's getting away. If you miss this shot, he reaches the lever. And let's face it, some are chaos agents. They want surprise, risk, open space to act wild and find out what happens. You're not running one story. You're running 5 or more simultaneously. And the better you do it, the more the line between reality and fiction starts to blur. Because here's the kicker. Your players aren't watching a story. They're authoring a simulation and updating that simulation in real time. When you describe the smell of ash and salt, the olfactory cortex lights up like they actually smelled it. When you say the blade punches through her ribs with a wet crunch, their auditory system fires like they heard it. When you whisper, the cliff's edge crumbles beneath your boots, the brain treats it like a memory, not a story, a thing that happened. That's why players cry, they panic, why they whisper, please don't fail, while the dice are still spinning. Because their brains believe they want to, but only if you've earned that belief. And earning it takes more than just clever voices or dramatic music. It takes mechanical honesty, emotional consistency, tone that matches the moment. It means reading your players like a conductor reads a symphony. Too slow, they drift. Too fast, they shut down. Too dry, they disengage. Too intense, they snap out of it. You have to feel it. Know when to push, when to wait, and when to say nothing at all, and let the silence do the work. You're not just running a game. You're managing the neurochemical rhythm of 5 separate people in real time. And that's why this is the most powerful storytelling medium in existence. Because it's not passive. It's a collaborative hallucination. And now, here's where we take it to the next level. In this section, I'm going to read you an opening monologue. It's highly hypnotic by design. And after that, we're going to break it down, line by line. I'll show you exactly how it works. Over 20 specific hypnotic techniques pulled from the Milton method, plus linguistic patterns used throughout history by orators, prophets, priests, playwrights, to bypass logic and go straight to the imagination. No, it won't put you into a trance and force you to buy the Enginotica core rulebook. I wish. But you should do that, and it's available on DriveThruRPG. Because when you experience these tools in context and then we dissect them, I think you'll start to see how powerful they really are and learn how to weaponize them. And if you learn them, I guarantee you will be able to guide your table into hypnotic flow states that make your sessions feel like dreams they'll never forget. Not because you tricked them, but because you invited them into something worth believing in. And they said yes. All right, you ready? Let's step into the spiral. The wind howls through the ancient trees, whispering secrets of forgotten kings. The wind howls, carrying the scent of distant rain, of turned soil, of a forest that has known fire and forgotten it. The wind howls, beckoning you deeper into the shadowed forest. Through sodden leaf and shuddering bough, the wind howls, and the rain came with it, falling sharp as iron upon your cloak. Mud clings to your boots. The torch sputters in your hand. But you don't look back, because you've already come too far. The wind howls, leaving more than just whispers, but warnings of 1,000 ghosts. You feel it in your shoulders, that pressure, that quiet certainty. This place was not meant to be found, this tomb. Stone and root and time woven together. Its arch sundered and gaping like the mouth of a beast that died screaming, as if the earth had once tried to hide it and failed. You step closer. Your breath does something strange. Not just a catch, more like a pause, a stutter in the chest. No one says anything. But in the quiet between heartbeats, a thought threads through you like smoke. We should not be here. Still, you step forward because something in your character, something in you, believes this moment has always been waiting. And as you pass beneath the arch, the world behind you ceases. No rain, no sound, only the hush of stone. The silence clings to your skin like wet ash, soft, weightless, and impossible to scrub off. Water somewhere, unseen. Now it's just stone, cold, wet, descending, still, but not empty, listening. The air inside presses against you, dense, ancient, foreboding. It remembers things, it waits to see what kind of story you'll bring into it. Your torch flares, Every shadow looks like a threat or a promise. You see walls that bleed colorless moss. A statue whose face weeps not water, but something darker. And the deeper you go, the quieter your party gets. The instinct to whisper, to tread lightly, to not be seen. And that's when you hear it. The breath, deep, measured. You feel it in your ribs, your fingertips in the scar from 3 jobs ago. Don't think about what's breathing down there. Don't imagine how long it's been waiting. Don't try to picture the size of the thing that makes a sound like that. And maybe you don't remember why you took this job. Maybe it was gold, maybe revenge, maybe a whisper in a dream. But none of that matters now. What matters is what waits beneath a presence. Ancient, you descend, the air shifts again, hotter, drier. You taste the soot before you smell it. You smell the blood before you see it. And the more you try to keep your focus on the job, on the plan, on the gold waiting, the more your thoughts start to fray. The more your grip, your weapon, the more your hand starts to sweat. And the more you remind yourself this is just another job, the more this place insists it is not. And the more you try to convince yourself you're the hunter, the more it feels like you're the one being stalked through the deep pitch that you descend. And then your foot brushes bone. It rolls, echoes, stops. And that's when you see it. The chamber is vast, hollowed by heat, by hate. The walls ripple with scorch marks. The floor cracked from the weight of 1,000 dreams turned to ash. And at the center, drawn into itself like a dream hoarded too long, curled tight like a secret, is the dragon. But things that sleep this deep don't dream. Its wings fold like a cathedral door. Its tail coils like a disintered worm. Its scales dulled gold, cracked, cruel, radiant with slow-burning veins of molten fire. And then your boot shifts. A bone cracks beneath it, the sound deafening in the silence. One eye opens. It glows like gold stolen from the sun, then red like the heart of a forge, then black, utterly, terribly black, like the space between the stars, where light itself is afraid to dwell. It rises, not with speed, but with certainty, like gravity reversing itself, like inevitability made flesh. Your lungs catch, your knuckles tighten, your voice gone. It watches, it grins, and then the voice, low, silken, cruel. Careful now. Those bones were heroes once. Braver than you. Quieter than you. You reek of fear and ambition. A delightful pairing.
I wonder, did you come for gold? For glory? Or just to see if the stories were true? Now you know. They are. You came to claim something. Then claim it. Claim your place in my throne of bones. Then, the inhale. Massive. Predatory. Inevitable. The kind of wind of its inhale rips the flame from the torch in your hand. True darkness rushes in. The dragon's throat begins to glow. First orange, then white, then blinding. And in that final breathless moment, as light floods the edges of your vision, as the heat licks the inside of your lungs, you feel it. Fate calling you home. What do you do? So let's break this down. Because here's the truth. Immersion is not magic. It's method. But how do you build that? Not with lore dumps, not with fancy terrain, with language. And not just what you say, but how you say it. So let's start with rhythm, repetition, cadence. Not as decoration, as design. Because rhythm isn't just poetic, it's psychological. It slips under the radar. You hear it in lines like, "The wind howls through the ancient trees, whispering secrets of forgotten kings. The wind howls, carrying the scent of distant rain. The wind howls, beckoning you deeper into the forest." The repetition is the point. That phrase, "the wind howls." It loops. It pulses. It sets the tempo. And why does that work? Because rhythm short-circuits conscious thought. You stop analyzing and start absorbing. Just like music, just like poetry. And when we add structure to that rhythm, like the more, we're building a spiral, a psychological one. The more you grip your weapon, the more your hand starts to sweat. The more you remind yourself this is just another job, the more this place insists it isn't. It's not just atmospheric, it's recursive. Each beat reinforces the last, it spirals. Now let's layer in the senses. Most DMs stick to sight, but here's a dirty secret. Sight is the least immersive sense. It's passive. It's filtered. But touch, taste, smell? Those hit your lizard brain. You taste the soot before you smell it. You smell the blood before you see it. That's a neurological hijack. The brain can't ignore sensory input that overlaps like that. And it doesn't matter if it's realistic. If it feels real, your brain processes it in the same way. The torch sputters in your hand. The silence clings to your skin like wet ash. Rain came with it, falling sharp as iron on your cloak. We're not painting a picture. We're crafting a multi-sensory hallucination. And the more senses we engage at once, the more real the fiction becomes. Because that's the secret. Your brain doesn't know the difference between vivid imagination and true memory. So the DM's job isn't to describe the world, it's to vividly install it. Which brings us to a great weapon. Second-person narration. You feel it in your shoulders, that pressure. Your boot shifts. A bone cracks beneath it. Your lungs catch your voice gone. Notice what's happening? The player isn't watching their characters act, they're kind of feeling it. This is identity bleed by design. Second person narration turns it into an experience. You descend, you taste, you remember, and over time, that you starts to mean you. Not your rogue, not your character, you. That's not just immersion. That's embodiment. And it's powerful, because when the brain starts to treat narration like memory, it wires those emotions in for real. Not just my rogue was afraid, but I felt that fear. You want horror to land? Use this. You want awe, guilt, wonder? Use this tool. Because second person narration is like a knife. It cuts right past defenses, right into the nervous system. And now maybe one of the most subtle techniques of all, presupposition. This one's almost invisible if you're not looking for it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Example, because you've already come too far. As you pass beneath the arch, the world behind you ceases. And that's when you see it. You've used lines like that. We all have. Especially when narrating after a roll. The player acts, the dice hit, and you speak. But here's the hypnotic truth hiding inside those phrases. They embed assumptions the brain doesn't question. You're not asking, do you see it? You're saying, that's when you see it. The decision is already made. The action has already happened. The only thing left is for the player's brain to simulate it. And it will. Instantly. Automatically. And when they do, they go deeper into trance. Because the brain hates gaps. When you present a statement with an implied truth, especially one tied to sense or emotion, the brain just fills in the rest without protest, without hesitation. This is why you've already been doing this since your first game. You said you feel the air change, or your hand finds the knife, or a shadow flickers in your peripheral vision. And the players didn't argue, they experienced it. That's presupposition in action. But here's the unlock. Once you understand what it is, you can refine it, amplify it, use it with intent, because in D&D and systems like it, you're often required to narrate outcomes, not suggestions, not prompts, actual concrete consequences. And this is the paradox. Your job as GM is to shape events, but your goal is to be invisible. You want the player to feel like everything is flowing from their choices, even when you're guiding them. Presupposition is the bridge. When you say you reach the summit just as the red moon rises, or you know the voice even before she speaks, you're not forcing the player. You're handing their brain a scene already in motion, already lived, and their brain will accept it because it's framed as something they've already chosen. That's how you narrate outcomes while preserving the sense of agency. That's how you make your rulings feel like their memories, not mechanics. And that's how the spiral tightens quietly, elegantly, until the players don't remember what they decided. They just remember what happened. And if you can do that, you're not just telling stories anymore. You're building shared hallucinations, and they'll believe in them like they lived it. They're not imagining a character. They're remembering an experience. And when that happens, you've got them. Which brings us to metaphor. Let's say it plainly. Metaphor is the cheat code. When you say the door yawns like the mouth of a beast that died screaming, you're not giving directions, you're handing out nightmares. Because now the room isn't just dangerous, it feels alive, it's ancient, it's a corpse with memory. And that's how metaphor works. It elevates the moment. It takes one layer of meaning and overlays another. Emotional, subconscious, mythic. You're not describing architecture, you're conjuring archetypes. Its tail coils like a disintered worm. The statue weeps, not water, but something darker. One eye opens, glows like gold stolen from the sun, then black, utterly terrible black, like the space between stars. These aren't just details, they're symbols. They stick because they make sense in the emotional brain. Even if they don't track spatially or logically, it doesn't matter. What matters is what it feels like. And now something harder to notice, but devastating when used well. Negative space. No rain, no sound, only the hush of stone. But not empty. Listening. You see what happened there? We're not told what's in the tomb. We're told what isn't. And the brain hates that. Because now it has to do the work. Now it's filling the silence with possibility. And if you've ever been in a dark room, listening to nothing, you know how loud that can get. Negative space makes the world press in. It makes every absence feel deliberate and every silence threatening. Next, strategic vagueness. This is the technique that most GMs think they're already using, but not like this. Something in you believes this moment has always been waiting. Water, somewhere, unseen. Every shadow looks like a threat or a promise. This isn't just being unclear. This is deliberate ambiguity. Language that suggests but does not define. Why? Because as soon as you lock it down, you see a 7-foot iron door with a cracked handle. You're limiting what it can be. You've shrunk the threat. But if you say, a presence, ancient, lingering in the dark, the player fills that blank with whatever they fear most, or hope for most. Either way, it's personal to them now. And when it's personal, it's much realer than anything you can describe. Now let's flip that completely, because you know what's even more powerful than vague suggestion? Telling someone not to imagine something. Don't think about what's breathing down there. Don't imagine how long it's been waiting. Don't try to picture the size of the thing that makes a sound like that. You see what happened? I bet you just did. It's called a negative command, and it's one of the oldest rhetorical tricks in the book. The brain has to process the image before it can obey the instruction. Don't think about a pink elephant. Bet you did it. Everyone does. So when you say, don't imagine its jaws, slow, rusted, eager, just behind the stone, you bypassed everything. That image is in their brain now. That's not narration, that's implantation. And now we come back around to one of the most dangerous tools in the box. The more, the more. You've heard it before. The more you try to keep your focus, the more your thoughts start to fray. The more you remind yourself this is just another job, the more this place insists it is not. This is a loop, a spiral. Each phrase adds pressure because, here's the trick, it reframes resistance as submission. You think you're staying in control. You're proving you're not. You grip the weapon tighter and your hands sweat. You think you're hunting. No, you're being hunted.
And when players feel that spiral, they stop thinking like players, they start experiencing. That's the heart of all of this, because none of these techniques work in isolation. But when you stack them, when you use rhythm and metaphor, deny, suggest, spiral, and strip the world of specifics, you're not telling a story, you're inviting them to dream one. And once they're dreaming, they're yours. So let's get surgical. Pacing, current experience. Mud clings to your boots. Your torch flares. Your lungs catch. Your knuckles tighten. Your voice gone. These aren't future actions, they're already true. We're not asking the player to imagine something, we're describing what they're already feeling. This is one of the fastest ways to build rapport. Because when a player hears something and thinks, yeah, that's what I pictured, their brain goes, okay, this narrator gets me. And once you believe someone understands your reality, you'll follow them anywhere. Next. Show, don't tell. The oldest writing advice in the book, but almost no one applies it at the table. Your breath does something strange, not just a catch, more like a pause, a stutter in the chest. That's not you're scared. That's you noticing yourself being scared. Huge difference. We don't say it's muddy. We say mud clings to your boots because that activates a sensation, not a summary. And when we move through telling details, we sharpen everything. It's not just a statue. It weeps, not water, but something darker. Not just dragon scales, cracked, cruel, rusted copper barbs. These aren't generalities, these are anchors. Sticky little fragments that glue themselves to memory. If you've ever had a player come back months later and say, dude, remember that dragon's eye? The one that glowed like gold, then red, then black, like the space between stars? That's why. Because the detail was weird enough, vivid enough, true enough to stay. Now layer in some gut-level verbs. The torch sputters, the wind howls, the walls bleed, the silence clings, the breath slithers. These aren't verbs from your English textbook. They're visceral, they're physical, they happen in the body. And then there's command phrasing. You step closer, you descend, you see it. No hesitation, no question marks. Not would you like to enter? You already did. And because you already did, your brain accepts that and moves forward. This isn't stealing agency, it's removing friction. It's removing the little pause between I guess I could and I do. And that creates momentum. And now here's one you might not even notice until you look for it. It's called lost performative. These are the lines with no speaker, no attribution. This place was not meant to be found. We should not be here. Things that sleep this deep don't dream. No one says them, but they feel true. They feel ancient. Because the narrator doesn't tell you it's true. They assume it is. And your brain, it doesn't fight it. It just absorbs it. Because when there's no source to argue with, you don't argue. Let's get even sneakier with embedded commands. This is where the real hypnotists live. The wind howls, beckoning you deeper into the shadowed forest. This isn't a command, it's a nudge. It suggests action, implies personhood, and invites interpretation. So it doesn't feel like the narrator is telling you what to do. It feels like the world is. Like you thought of it yourself. Maybe you did. That's the trick.
But it gets even more personal when you let the character color the world. Try this. You feel it in your ribs, in the scar from 3 jobs ago. Maybe you don't remember why you even took this job. Gold, revenge, a whisper in a dream? That's not generic. That's your character, your history, your motivations, bleeding into the scene like an old wound reopened. And now, embedded foreshadowing. This place was not meant to be found. What matters is what waits beneath. The dragon's throat begins to glow, first orange, then white, then blinding. These are lines that don't just describe, they forewarn. They set up the structure, they raise the stakes, so that when the big moment drops, it doesn't come from nowhere. It resonates, because part of you was sort of waiting for it. And then finally, one of the most elegant tricks in the whole thing, selective focus. After flooding the senses, the mud, the silence, the breath, the torch, the narration narrows, and at the center is the dragon. One eye opens. That's the point. Everything else falls away, because after all that swirling detail, you need a fixed point, a singular image. It lands harder because your brain needs something to focus on. And when that thing is terrifying or beautiful, massive, it stays right there in the center of the dream. So here's the real takeaway. Every technique you've heard in these breakdowns, rhythm, metaphor, sensory immersion, second person bleed, they're not tricks. They're architecture used in not only every professional hypnosis, but also in every great book you've ever read. You're not just saying cool things. You're building an experience the players can lose themselves in. That's the goal. Not to impress, but to invoke the circle. To create a world that feels alive. Because it moved into someone else's mind and took root. So let's get real for a second. Because this next part, it's not about the script. It's about what you do with it. You could have the most perfectly written monologue in the world. But if your delivery falls flat, your players won't follow. Not because they don't care, but because their bodies don't believe you. So let's talk performance. Let's start with mirroring and matching. Before you even begin a session with your players, with a monologue like this, the first thing you do is read the room. Are they already leaning in? Are they joking around? Are they still halfway in the last combat? You meet them there. You don't slam into horror at full volume. You match their energy first, tone, pace, even posture, and then you lead, slowly transitioning to a new place with your cadence and tone and body language. This is how you build rapport with the table without saying a word. Because once they've synced with you, you can take them somewhere. Now, once you've got them following your energy, that's when you let emotional contagion kick in. You don't just describe the fear, you embody it. Your voice drops to a whisper. Your shoulders hunch. You glance sideways, like something's watching you. And the players, they start mimicking. Subconsciously, automatically, that's how you go from their listening to their feeling. Because people don't just copy ideas, they copy emotions. And if you are afraid, they will be too. Next up, emotional transformation. Think of this like emotional choreography. You're not staying in just one tone, you're moving. Start still, quiet, tense. Describe the silence like it's pressing against their skin. Then raise the urgency. Pick up the pace. Lay the pressure. And then, crack! Drop it like a cymbal crash. Fast, loud, sharp. Then pull back. Slow it down. Let them sit in the aftermath, the awe, the terror, the inevitability. This keeps their brains and bodies engaged because they're not stuck in one emotional note. They're riding the whole scale. Next, object work. Straight out of improv, and yes, it works at the tabletop. When you describe mud clings to your boots, touch your leg. The torch sputters in your hand. You brush something, bone, it rolls, echo stops. Pause, glance sideways. These are small, subtle cues. You're not miming the whole play, you're anchoring the fiction in a little bit of motion. Because once the players start imagining the feel of the things in your hands, they start imagining it in their hands. And now the world has some extra texture. So let's zoom out. You don't need to be a stage actor. You don't need to be super dramatic. You just need to know your tools. Voice, pace, posture, gesture, cadence. That's pretty much it. But if you learn to use those well, you stop narrating and you start inviting. And once they step inside that invitation, that magic circle, they don't want to leave, because now it's not just a game. It's not just a scene. It's a moment they felt in their body. And that's what lasts, because now you've seen how it works. Not just what to say, but how to say it. How rhythm becomes atmosphere. How voice becomes tension. How a single phrase can anchor a memory that lasts for years. But here's the part that matters most. None of this is about control. It's about consent. It's about trust. Because when your players know they're in good hands, when you've earned their attention, they want to follow you into that tomb. They want to feel the breath catch. They want the moment to mean something. And that's the heart of it. Not mechanics, not minis, not maps, just your voice, your vision, and the courage to guide them through a dream that they help shape. If you want to do this well, really well, here's what I recommend. Be intentional. Know what you want them to feel. Layer your techniques, stack rhythm, sensory detail, and emotional pacing. Watch their faces, not their dice, and anchor what matters. The phrase, the sound, the moment. Let it echo. Because if you can make them feel something real, if you can hit that silence where nobody speaks, not because they're confused, but because they feel the weight of what just happened, that's it. That's the magic. And if this video helped you get a little closer to that moment, do me a favor. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. I'm doing one of these every week. Deep dives, wild ideas, stuff you can actually use. Jump in the Discord. We've got a founding community forming. GMs, players, mad inventors. If you've got questions, weird theories, or just want to find people who think like this, that's the place. And if you want to go deeper, check out the Patreon. There's a tier where I run cinematic games like this, one-shots and long West Marches style arcs, with me as the GM. And another tier for GMs who want to sharpen their tools, one-on-one coaching, scene design breakdowns, live narrative tuning. And if you want the Enginotica core rulebook, if you want to see the system that makes all of this not only possible but playable, go grab Enginotica on DriveThruRPG. It's weird, it's beautiful. It's built for this exact kind of play, and it will change the way you run your table. So this stuff, it's not just storytelling, it's memory, it's myth. It's the kind of moment your players bring up years later when someone says, "Hey, remember that dragon?" And you all go quiet. And you all nod because you felt it. And once they feel it, they won't forget it. See you in the spiral, my friends.